Indiana Fever front office is about to do another roster overhaul for the 2026 WNBA season.
All right, the Indiana Fever made a move that was completely unexpected. I mean, no one. After being knocked unconscious for several hours, they suddenly dropped 8 players in a single night during the playoffs. And the WNBA as a whole descended into anarchy. Admirers were unable to comprehend what they were witnessing. Insiders were frantically attempting to ascertain what had just transpired. And even competing coaches were completely unprepared. What in the world would make a franchise clean house thus thoroughly? Quick, huh? Was this a well-thought-out strategy, a planned reconstruction they had been working on for months? Or was it really a last-ditch effort in response to another season that ended far too soon, leaving everyone disappointed?
I believe a lot of players will be exiting the building like Elvis, bruh. They got to get the hell out of Dodge. Now, I'm telling you right now, I believe more than half of this team is going to leave. I just got to keep it real. A lot of players is going to leave. I believe a few big names is probably going to leave. And more importantly, we need to get the ball back to Caitlin.
But there is one thing that is very evident. This goes beyond basketball, and no longer. Not even close. This is about power struggles and ego conflicts behind closed doors, the difficulties in the front office, and the pressing need to assemble a team capable of winning a championship around Caitlin Clark before the window shuts. And now that the dust is starting to settle, everyone's asking the same question. Who is the real remaining? Who else could go soon? What does all of this indicate about the future course of the Fever? Due to the fact that the true narrative behind these 8 deletions is far more complex than anyone initially believed. And this is where it all begins with what was actually taking place within that company.
No one predicted them to go this far, especially without Caitlin Clark. Now, granted, they was projected to be, final contenders, but that was with the roster that they had. Obviously, they had a whole nother roster, and like I keep telling you, momentum was the key.
But there is one thing that is very evident. This goes beyond basketball, and no longer. Not even close. This is about power struggles and ego conflicts behind closed doors, the difficulties in the front office, and the pressing need to assemble a team capable of winning a championship around Caitlin Clark before the window shuts. And now that the dust is starting to settle, everyone's asking the same question. Who is the real remaining? Who else could go soon? What does all of this indicate about the future course of the Fever? Due to the fact that the true narrative behind these 8 deletions is far more complex than anyone initially believed. And this is where it all begins with what was actually taking place within that company.
We all know Stephanie White was running a whole lot of sets, bro. Whole lot of sets, whole lot of off-ball things, whole lot of things that Caitlin Clark really don't like to do, bro. Let's just be honest. Caitlin Clark is being the biggest trooper for this damn basketball team. But I think, just like I stated before, go back to the
players also wasn't something that happened overnight. Behind closed doors, this action had been simmering for weeks. There are rumors that for months, there had been rumors of significant disputes between head coach Stephanie White and the front staff, specifically regarding playing time decisions and team bonding difficulties. The Fever's downfall in the latter part of the season revealed one of their weaknesses, ranging from subpar rotations to obvious annoyance between the youngsters and veterans. Additionally, by the time the elimination actually occurred, management had already decided what needed to happen.
Granted, they was running this off ball and doing all these different experiments. Without momentum, I don't believe they would have made it as far. I believe they was playing meaningful basketball just due to the amount of injuries that the team took, and it kind of motivated them. They said it in their exit interview. The bench power pretty much motivated them and gave them the energy they need to prolong and get through a bunch of them long stretches in the series.
The Fever had given Caitlin Clark, the league's top star and marketing juggernaut, all they had. However, as the season went on, supporters began to pose the difficult query: why wasn't the team genuinely constructed around her strengths? Analysts continued to note that the offense had totally strayed from the swift, fluid system that produced. Instead, it turned into this inflexible, regimented thing with forced sets, poor ball movement, and lineups that were simply nonsensical. Yes, you heard correctly. Clark tried to adapt as best she could. She made a sincere effort, but anyone observing could see how out of sync it was. She appeared totally worn out by the last game, attempting to fit into a system that simply didn't suit her style, while bearing much too much of the burden. Additionally, on top of everything,
Let's listen to what Caitlin Clark had to say years ago.
A huge reason why I came here, and that's what she preached to me in the recruiting process. You know, you're going to have the ball in your hands a lot. And I think a lot of my final schools kind of had that same look, but I think the read and react offense that we run was super important for myself. You know, you're making basketball reads. It's not a set. You're not being told what to do every single time you come down the floor. You're just playing the game you love.
Then the wounds appeared. Key players were eliminated one by one, and the Fever's lack of depth was ruthlessly revealed for everyone to see. While the players were condemning the coaching choices, the front staff began toe conditioning regimens. And the message became quite evident when the losses simply continued to mount. Something had to change, and it needed to happen quickly. The Fever had no plans to replicate their poor performance from the previous year with on their squad is one of the most anticipated players in basketball history. Thus, following the removal, calls were being created even before the sun rose. Lockers were removed, agents were informed, and 8 players were informed they wouldn't return in that manner. The action was definitely brutal, but it conveyed a strong message to all onlookers. The Fever had given up on mediocrity altogether. The goal was to assemble a winning team around Clark and Aaliyah Boston. Not merely endure the season, but genuinely contend for titles. However, as supporters rejoiced over the prospect of a new beginning, others witnessed an entirely different scenario unfolding in a true reconstruction. One of increasing pressure, power struggles, and battles for power at the top. Because this was not merely a reorganization of the roster. This was an indication that the Fever, the front office, was at its utter breaking point. And just wait to hear whether you believe the cut ended there. Who could be the next to be fired? Because one thing became quite evident in the wake of this tremendous purging. The Fever are now prepared to develop around Caitlin Clark in the manner that she was intended to play. Fans have been pleading with the organization to simply allow Caitlin to be herself for months. No more complex sets. No more making her leave the ball without a valid reason. Why she became a star of her generation at Iowa wasn't limited to her amazing ability to score goals. It was her natural pace, her freedom on the court, and her total control over the floor. Her teammates benefited much from her instinctive play, and everything it clicked. However, the team's entire spirit vanished along with that independence when it was taken away. Within the Fever, nevertheless, a number of voices had been fervently advocating for the reinstatement of the same read and react defense. Indeed, Clark flourished while attending college, and in recent sessions, former Iowa coach Lisa Bluer's style was brought up as the ideal illustration of how to best utilize Clark's abilities. She was more than a scorer in that system. She was a creator, a conductor, and the offense's vital component. Additionally, the roster is currently getting thinner, and with additional cap space becoming available, this might ultimately become her team in every way. Sources near the front office has made it clear that they would give priority to signing players who truly fit that system for the whole offseason. High-IQ teammates who can predict Caitlin's reads rather than only waiting for set, shooters, and floor spacers plays that need to be called. The objective is to replicate the steroid-addled Iowa basketball style where Clark controls the tempo and keeps defenses guessing and fumbling all the time. According to sources, if you're not prepared to, don't even bother attending training camp if you can't shoot, cut, or move without the ball. Even Caitlin has been exceedingly patient during all of this. But if you were listening, you could see how frustrated she was. While in the press, she made careful word choices during conferences, but she hinted that she wanted a more fluid offense. And admirers recall her stating that all she wanted was to resume playing basketball, which was a subdued yet profound statement regarding how oppressive the organized system had grown. There was a rival behind that composed, businesslike demeanor who had grown weary of playing behind illogical boundaries. Additionally, for Fever supporters, this change is about far more than only a tactic. It concerns the whole identity of the squad. The company is aware that once Clark is fully released.
Now, the style of play, and this is what I've been saying, we need to go back to the basics. And the basic is this style of play with Caitlin Clark, giving her the ball. Let her play freely, openly. Let her do what she do. No calling different sets going up the court. No doing none of this. Put players around Caitlin with that know how to obviously read sets, know their responsibility, because Caitlin Clark said it herself.
Everything shifts. The arena's vibe changes. On the court, there is chemistry. Even how rival teams must protect them entirely changes. Cutting guys who didn't contribute isn't the only goal of this reconstruction. The goal is to cut all the reasons for their delay. It's about getting everything in line, including the recruiting process and the coaching mentality approach, and the player rotations that, by themselves, bring the WNBA's whole fan base back to life. Additionally, if Thief Fever is genuinely dedicated to that goal, they might be invincible. However, that is contingent upon one crucial factor: whether the coaching staff and Stephanie White can truly adjust to this new situation. Due to the fact that the same coach who relies so much on strict playbooks, she is currently facing her career's most pivotal time. She either changes with Caitlin's game and accepts this new course, or else she'll be the next person to be let go. It's as easy as that. The front desk has taken action and delivered a message. The true question now is whether the coach will adhere to the vision or turn into the largest barrier preventing it. One name remained after the mass roster cut was finished, circulating repeatedly behind the scenes. Stephanie White, the head coach, was once commended for researching a young developing group. Now, she is directly in the middle of an increasing tension that is palpable to all. According to insiders, her connection with the front office has gradually gotten worse. And the explanation is actually rather straightforward. Her framework simply doesn't align with the Fever's desired future course. White's methodical play-by-play strategy worked for a while. It had its time. However, under Caitlin Clark's leadership, it began to feel incredibly antiquated. And fans witnessed it. On TV, analysts called it out. The front office has finally made it quite plain. There will be change soon.
Bree Hall gone, Shea Petty gone, Natasha Howard gone, Bree Turner gone, Damster's gone. That's 5. Ariel Powers, Sydney Colson. Hold on, Sydney Colson and Damster's 8. Yep, I believe they lose 8 players. This is just my prediction.
If she's comfortable with it. Supporters of White contend that she was given a very challenging hand. I mean, several injuries, rotations that change frequently, and a team full of guys who are still figuring out how to work with a superstar made it nearly impossible to attain any consistency. However, her detractors claim that she blatantly refused to change to obstinately adhere